everyone. Welcome to the Fingerprints podcast. We're your hosts, Nicole and Phoebe.
Today, we would like to introduce you to our next guest, Sachi.
Hi everyone, my name is Sachi Mascara. I'm 18 years old and I'm from India and I go to St. Clair's, Oxford. And the story that I'm going to be sharing today, or rather not story, but what I'm going to be talking about today is a little snippet of my life growing up with divorced parents in India. So, coming from this traditional, pretty much patriarchal Indian society, joint families were very common and divorce was pretty much a taboo. And again, this story, if I can even call it a story, is concentrated more so in the early 2000s. So in India, largely, a lot of couples would choose to live together regardless of any angst they might have usually felt, perhaps trying to prioritize their children and their well-being. And a lot of wives chose to look in the other direction and the other way on their partner's indiscretions because of the security and comfort of being in this marriage umbrella. So that way, my parents were pretty unconventional. More so my dad, even though he grew up in a very traditional, very religious Indian family of four. And at the age of 2, my parents decided to get a divorce. And this literally turned worlds over. I mean, I don't think my grandparents ever imagined their oldest son, this businessman, not having a wife by his side all throughout his life. And they were appalled because this was the first divorce amongst all of the generations of the Mascara family, of our Mascara family, or of our extended family, or even of our friends. So literally nobody knew how to deal with it. And I think it completely shook our foundation, this divorce. And I mean, I don't have many memories of the divorce itself because I was so young, but I can recollect numerous situations that didn't seem very tangible back then to me as a young child, but I reflect upon them now quite differently. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm the only child in this world with divorced parents, of course not. But at the time, I grew up in an Indian school with pretty much all 70 of my classmates and their friends all living with their 2 parents at home. I mean, it was the norm. So this made me a bit special, I guess. And I mean, as a kid, I'd travel with my friends. We'd go on little trips for their birthdays and holidays, and they'd be accompanied by both parents. And there I was with just my mom. And, we'd go for school lunches and dinners. And again, both the parents would show up. And we go for parent-teacher meetings. And I'd see my friends holding hands as they stood in queue with both their parents. And I mean, again, I'd be there only with my mom, and I guess in ways this made me feel a bit isolated from everyone else. And a few years into the divorce, my dad decided to remarry, which had a very, very big effect on me. I mean, I remember crying and sobbing after my 7th birthday party when he gave me the news, and I didn't speak to him for months. I mean, I didn't even attend their wedding, I guess because at the time I felt a bit abandoned because I had hopes that my mama and papa would get back together, and I was scared that my father was suddenly moving on and he'd forget about me. I mean, it was strange. There were so many emotions. And as I was growing up, of course, all my friends knew they knew about the divorce, but it was never something that they felt comfortable talking to me about openly, because I think they thought it wasn't something that I'd want to talk about either. So for example, if I ever said, I'm going to my dad's house for the weekend, my stepmom said this to me, I mean, I almost felt as if they'd give each other these subtle glances, or there'd suddenly be these awkward silences only because they weren't sure what they should say. And I remember one day also my mom actually got called into school by the principal just because they were so concerned for the way that I was behaving at school. I was behaving strange. I was talking about this new wife so much. And it was quite a big shock. I took it as quite a big shock. And now I'm so blessed that my mom and dad, well, actually they always got along very well. So I'm so blessed that they got along so very well. I mean, my dad literally lives a building away from me and I meet him basically all the time. Like, it's definitely the opposite of him being out of the picture. My dad has been there for me in a million ways my whole entire life. Wait, now I did touch wood. And my mom too. I mean, she gave up her job. She didn't really date, or at least not that I know of. And she completely sacrificed her life to be there for me and to constantly remind me that I was loved and cared for, and perhaps to try and fill that whatever void I might have been feeling. Wait, now I'm touching wood for the second time. And I guess the point of this whole thing, I guess the point of it is for me to reflect upon growing up in such a society. And I guess I wonder why divorces must be so stigmatized. My parents made so many sacrifices for me. God knows what it must have been like. My parents took me, this 4-year-old daughter, to Hong Kong on a family is in inverted commas for dramatic effect, a family holiday 1 year after their divorce, and we all stayed in the same hotel and we went on rides in Disneyland together, and God knows what that must have been like. But anyways, we move on. I feel closer to them now more than ever. And it's so strange to think how quickly times have changed, and how at one point I'd feel odd writing about, "Hi, my name is Sachi Mascara. I live with my mom and my dog" in my self-introduction essays at school. I think I really admire the way that we worked around it as a family, and it's woven into my identity and become a part of who I am. And having to deal with this at such a young age has exposed me to how the world is definitely not this utopia. And no matter how imperfect the situation seemed, I guess, it was my perfect. I mean, I grew up so happy, I was so loved, I was so nurtured, so cared for. And I think the thing that it's taught me is that I shouldn't really let the world around me force me into doing things that I don't want to do, or actually more so stop me from doing what I think is ultimately right. Or actually, can I add in my sweeping statement of the day? I shouldn't let anyone steal my thunder. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, pretend to be someone I'm not. And it's quite hard to stand against external opinions, and sometimes I tend to take comments very literally. But I guess seeing how my parents seem to defy this entire culture around them, being judged for doing, as they say, the absolute worst of the worst, is something that I will always take forward with me for the rest of my life. And this has greatly influenced that part of me that's often so carefree and happy-go-lucky, because, and I know this is exaggerated and might sound a bit cliche, but the essence is that I know that nothing can stop me. Not really.
Wow, this is amazing, honestly. Do you think there are ways of making divorces less stigmatized?
So I think in a country like India, where marriage is essentially quintessential and sacred for a woman, divorce seems to be this like big sign of failure. And in India, failed marriage is not the same as a divorce. But I think people are now more than ever starting to realize that the absence of a divorce doesn't necessarily mean that all is well in the marriage department. And I think it's definitely going to take time to get rid of this stigma of divorce, especially with this population of 1 billion people. So yeah, it'll take time, more time to reach the rural parts of India, the ones with years and years of tradition ingrained in them. So I really don't think you can get completely rid of the stigma. But you can change the way that we act upon it. So I think talking about it is the biggest one. I think that's the biggest way to get rid of a taboo. So, to create that sense of acceptance and comfort around it. So, I mean, I don't know, this could be achieved essentially through comedy, perhaps. I mean, I think that humor is my favorite way to deal with uncomfortable situations. And, talk shows, podcasts such as this one, general talk on social media. I mean, I guess with the digital age, it's just so much easier for means to communicate. And over time, I think we'll realize how we can use that to our benefit.
Do you think that traditional families in India nowadays are more accepting and used to dealing with untraditional family dynamics, such as divorces due to globalization and international media? I mean, nowadays there are so many popular sitcoms that portray modern family networks like Modern Family.
I don't think this is specific only in India. I think with the globalization, with modernization, with the development of media and technology, everything is just becoming interconnected. So cultures are spreading, people are traveling around the world. Um, so I definitely think that in that sense, traditions as they are passed on generation to generation, um, become more integrated and more modernized. So I don't think that's only specific to India. So yeah, I definitely think that that is something that's prevalent in the world today.
You described your situation as you're perfect. Do you think we have to make our stories, our realities, our own perfect? Because life will never be absolutely perfect.
Oh my gosh, yes, I 100% agree. I mean, you're always going to be put in these situations that at times might not seem like the brightest things in the world, but I think one of my core values is trying my best to look at situations in the best light possible because, and the biggest smile possible, because I think optimism goes a long, long way. And if you can perhaps spread that energy even to those around you, allowing you to accept situations that you might be in, and move forward and ignore the mishaps of life in that particular moment. I mean, imagine if we found every single situation that we're put in completely negative, and we found negatives in everything that we did. Everyone would be absolutely miserable. So I mean, because I guess what is perfect, like there's no perfect, just versions of this perfect, and those versions are the ones that we create in our own heads.
Do you know more people with divorced parents now? Do you wish you knew them before? Do you think it helps to talk about it with others?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, less so in my friend group in India, I guess. Although I do know a few people. But it's great to talk to people with similar stories, that share similar feelings with you. And as a child, I guess it would have been nice to have a friend living in that similar little cocoon. But at the same time, on the other hand, I think I mean, uniquely growing up with this situation sort of helped me understand that some challenges we have to face alone, and we do face alone. And I guess that's just how the world is.
What words of encouragement would you give to a child or teenager that is experiencing the same thing you did?
Honestly, I don't know what advice I'd give to um, a child with parents going through divorce. I think the main thing is, I mean, I know how hard it can be and how it might seem that your world is completely collapsing and it might feel that everything's going wrong. And, I guess you just have to see it in the best light possible and understand that it is happening for a reason, and things will work out. It just takes time to adjust to get used to this new life, and I think you just need to try and be able to express what you're thinking and talk about your feelings openly and be able to tackle those as a family, because at the end of the day you still are a family whether or not your parents are together or not. So I think it's really important to communicate whatever you're feeling, whatever age you might be, to your parents, and try and deal with it in the best light possible, and know that your attitude will allow you to overcome the situation and things will get better.
You said you never went to your father's second wedding. Would you change that now?
Yeah, definitely now. Yeah, I mean, I think it was more just a shock and my childish way of dealing with my emotions back then, because I just didn't know how to articulate and deal with my feelings. And I guess as a child, I felt that, oh, if I stop talking to my father, then maybe he'll know that his daughter's upset. But as the years have gone by, I've learned how to deal with my emotions and talk about them really, really openly, and deal with them in a really healthy way and face them really maturely. So yeah, 100% I'd go to the wedding. I mean, if that's the decision that my father made, I'd want to do anything I can and anything that I could to make him happy. So if that means being the flower girl at his wedding, then watch me be the flower girl.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sachi, for sharing your story with us. I think you truly are a gifted storyteller.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your podcast. I really enjoyed that, and I hope that maybe this provided some insight into I guess you could say a sort of unconventional story and the experiences that I drew from that. And I really look forward to hearing the rest of the stories, and I wish you all the luck.
See you soon!
Fingerprints, a podcast embracing uniqueness, featuring real people and real stories.